Jin Kang sat in his small office on the Mars colony, reviewing security reports from the outer settlements. The red dust of Mars covered his window, making the sunset look darker than usual. After 15 years as a Marine Corps sniper and now 5 years as a civilian security consultant, he had trained himself to notice small details that others missed. The alert came on all channels at once. The Galactic Empire had announced an emergency broadcast. Jin turned up the volume, expecting another speech about loyalty and order. Instead, what he saw made his hands tighten on his desk. The Empire was showing what they called a public justice ceremony. They had gathered 60,000 people in a massive arena on their capital world. The Empire said these people were criminals and rebels who had attacked imperial peace. But Jin's trained eye saw something very different. "Those aren't criminals," he whispered to himself. His sniper training had taught him to read people's bodies, to notice tiny details about how they moved and held themselves. He saw the marks of torture on the prisoners. He saw how some still wore the simple clothes of farmers and teachers. These were civilians who had been rounded up and forced to confess. Jin started recording everything. He noticed how some prisoners had bruises in the same places, showing they had been beaten in the same way. He saw how their clothes came from peaceful colonies that had recently asked for more freedom. Every detail told the same story. These were innocent people being punished to scare others into silence. As the broadcast continued, Jin's office door opened. Ta Han, a young computer expert who worked in colony communications, rushed in. His face was pale. "Are you seeing this?" Ta asked. "They're going to." "I know," Jin said quietly. "And I'm documenting everything." Using skills from his military days, Jin started marking down every detail that proved these were innocent people. He noted their clothes, their injuries, the way they moved. He recorded the faces of the imperial officers giving orders, storing their images for future justice. The Empire had made a mistake. They thought this display would make people afraid. Instead, they had shown their true nature to someone trained to see the truth. Jin had spent years learning to watch and wait, to gather information before taking action. Now those same skills would help him expose the Empire's crimes. "Send me everything you can find about these people," Jin told Ta. "Colony records, news reports, anything. The Empire is lying about who these people are, and we're going to prove it." Ta nodded and hurried back to his office. Jin kept watching, kept recording. His hands were steady, just as they had been when he was a sniper, but his mind was already planning, thinking about how to use his skills not to take lives, but to save them. The broadcast ended 2 hours later. Jin sat in his dark office, looking at the notes and images he had gathered. He knew that speaking up against the Empire was dangerous. They would try to silence anyone who questioned their actions. But he also knew that his duty hadn't ended when he left the Marines. He had sworn to protect people from threats, and now the greatest threat wore an imperial uniform. Tomorrow, he would begin turning his evidence into action. But tonight, he would remember the faces he had seen. They deserved justice, and his sniper's patience and precision would help make sure they got it. The next morning, Jin Kang's office looked like a military command center. He had covered one wall with images from the broadcast, each marked with notes about what he had seen. Ta Han sat at a computer terminal, digging through colony records and comparing them to the Empire's claims. "Look at this," Ta said, pointing to his screen. "The Empire says these people attacked an imperial base on New Athens colony. But I found pictures from that day. These same people were at a peaceful protest about food shortages. They never went near any military base." Jin studied the images carefully. His sniper training had taught him to spot patterns, to see connections others might miss. "The Empire changed their clothes in the broadcast," he said. "But look at their faces, the way they hold themselves. It's definitely the same people." A soft knock at the door made them both turn quickly. A woman stood there, her face serious but calm. "I'm Mira Park," she said, "and I have more proof you need to see." Jin studied her carefully. His military experience helped him read people, and he saw no signs of deception. He nodded for her to come in. Mira worked as a data analyst in the colony's administration. She had been tracking unusual patterns in Imperial communications. They started moving troops to peaceful colonies 3 months ago, she explained. Always after colonies asked for basic rights. Better food, free elections, fair trials. The Empire wasn't responding to violence. They were planning these arrests from the start. Jin's training had taught him to gather all the facts before taking action. We need to organize this evidence properly, he said. Make it clear enough that anyone can understand it. He started arranging their findings like he used to plan military operations. Everything in its proper place, every fact verified 3 times. Tay suddenly went pale, staring at his screen. They're watching the communications networks, he said. Looking for anyone downloading too many records about the executed people. They're hunting for investigators. They'll be looking for unusual activity, Jin said, thinking like a sniper planning a mission. So we'll have to be careful. Gather information slowly. Use different networks. Make it look like normal traffic. Mira nodded. I can help with that. My work lets me access records without raising alarms, but we need to hurry. I've seen signs they're planning to do this again in other colonies. Jin stood at his window, looking out at the Martian sunset. His military training had taught him that rushing could be deadly. But waiting too long could be just as dangerous. They needed to find the right balance between speed and safety. We'll need 3 things, he said, falling back on his mission planning experience. First, proof that these people were innocent. Second, evidence showing the Empire planned this in advance. Third, a secure way to share what we find with people who can help. I know some people, Mira said quietly, a network of others who want justice. But they need solid evidence before they'll act. Jin nodded. This would be like his hardest sniper missions. Patience, precision, and perfect timing all working together. But this time, he wasn't taking lives. He was working to save them. 1 week after discovering the Empire's crimes, Jin Kang found himself in an abandoned mining tunnel deep below the Mars colony. Mira Park had turned these old tunnels into meeting places for people who wanted to fight against the Empire's cruelty. Today, they were meeting someone important. Her name is Lieutenant Han, Mira explained as they waited. She works on an Imperial command ship, but she can't accept what the Empire is doing anymore. She's bringing us information about their next plans. Jin stayed in the shadows, watching the tunnel entrance. His sniper training had taught him to always check for traps or followers. The Empire had eyes everywhere, and one mistake could get them all killed. Lieutenant Han arrived alone, exactly on time. She wore civilian clothes instead of her Imperial uniform, but Jin could tell she was military by the way she moved. Her face showed the stress of someone carrying a heavy secret. More colonies are planning protests, she told them, her voice quiet but clear. The Empire is already preparing their response. They're building more prison ships. They're planning to do the same thing again, but on an even larger scale. Tahan, who had been working on a computer in the corner, looked up. I found something in their communication systems, he said. They're sending troops to the Europa colony. The people there asked for fair elections last week. Jin's mind worked like it did during mission planning. They needed to warn these colonies, but they also needed to be careful. A wrong move could make things worse. We need safe communication channels, he said, ways to warn people without the Empire knowing. He turned to Lieutenant Han. Can you tell us how the Empire tracks messages between colonies? The lieutenant nodded. She explained the Empire's communication monitoring systems. Jin listened carefully, thinking about how to work around them. His military experience helped him see ways to hide messages in normal colony traffic. We can use the old emergency channels, he suggested. The ones from before the Empire took control. They don't watch those as carefully. Mira agreed. I know people in most colonies who can receive those signals. People who will help spread the word quietly. They worked through the night, setting up their warning system. Jin taught them tricks he had learned in the military about hiding messages in plain sight. Tai found ways to make their communications look like normal colony business. Lieutenant Han told them which imperial codes would help their messages avoid attention. But as they worked, Jin noticed something in Lieutenant Han's reports that worried him. The Empire wasn't just planning more arrests. They were building something bigger, something designed to make sure no colony could ever resist them again. "We need to find out what they're planning," Jin said. "But we also need to protect the people who are in danger right now. We'll have to do both at the same time." Mira looked at their growing network of helpers on a digital map. "We're not alone anymore," she said. "Every person who learns the truth becomes another pair of eyes watching the Empire. Another set of hands helping to save lives." Jin nodded. Like any good sniper, he knew that patience and careful planning were their best weapons. The Empire thought their power made them strong. But Jin had learned in the military that the strongest position isn't always the most visible one. Sometimes, real strength lies in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to reveal the truth. Jin Kang stood in his office, looking at the wall of evidence they had gathered. 2 weeks had passed since they met Lieutenant Han. His military training told him it was time to move from gathering information to taking action. But this mission would need more planning than any he had done before. "I found something important," Ta said, rushing into the office. The execution orders all came from one person, Admiral Rock. He's the one who chose which colonies to target. He's the one who ordered the torture. Jin studied the documents Ta had found. His sniper's eye for detail caught something others might miss. "Look at these signatures," he said. Admiral Rock signed these orders before the colonies even started protesting. He wasn't responding to rebellion. He was creating it. Mira arrived with more news from their growing network of helpers. "The Europa colony protests are getting bigger," she said. "The people there know about the executions, but they're not backing down. They're demanding justice for the people who died." Jin walked to his window, thinking about what he had learned as a sniper. Sometimes the best way to stop an enemy wasn't to attack them directly. Sometimes you had to change the battlefield itself. "We need to do 3 things," he said, turning back to his team. "First, we need proof that Admiral Rock planned these killings in advance. Second, we need to show everyone in the Empire what really happened. And third, we need to make sure he can't do it again." Lieutenant Han had sent them the security plans for Imperial communications. Jin studied them like he used to study target locations. He saw a pattern, a weakness they could use. "The Empire broadcasts everything they do," he explained. "They want people to see their power, but that means we can use their own broadcast system against them." Tay's eyes lit up. "If we can get into their communication network, we could show everyone the truth, all the evidence we've gathered, all at once." Jin nodded. "But we need to be precise, like setting up a perfect shot. Everything has to be exactly right. If we miss, we won't get another chance." They worked through the night, planning every detail. Mira organized their network of helpers in different colonies. Todd prepared the evidence files, making them simple enough for anyone to understand. Jin used his military experience to plan how to protect everyone involved. "Admiral Rock will be making a big speech next week," Lieutenant Han told them through their secure channel. "He's going to announce new measures against the colonies. That's our chance." Jin thought about all the faces he had seen in the execution broadcast. He remembered how his sniper training had taught him to see the truth behind official lies. Now those same skills would help bring justice. "We'll need help from everyone in the network," he said. "Each person has to do their part at exactly the right time, like pieces of a weapon coming together." In the growing darkness of his office, Jin began writing out the plan. Each step had to be perfect. Each person had to know exactly what to do. One mistake could cost more innocent lives. But if they succeeded, they would show the whole galaxy the truth about the Empire's crimes. Lieutenant Han walked through the halls of her Imperial command ship, carrying the weight of her secret knowledge. Around her, Other officers went about their duties, but she noticed something different now. Whispers in corners, worried looks, doubts spreading like cracks in glass. In her private quarters, she sent a secure message to Jin Kang on Mars. After working with the resistance, she had learned to be as careful as they were. More officers are asking questions, she wrote. They've seen the signs of torture on the prisoners. Some are refusing to follow Admiral Rock's orders. On Mars, Jin read her message carefully. His years as a sniper had taught him that the moment when an enemy starts to doubt themselves is the perfect time to act. He called Mira and Tai to his office. The Empire isn't as united as they want us to think, he told them. Lieutenant Han says many Imperial officers don't want to be part of more killings, but Admiral Rock is planning something bigger than last time. Ta brought up new information on his computer. I found Admiral Rock's private messages, he said. He's ordered the building of more execution grounds on 3 different planets. He's planning to kill anyone who questions the Empire's power. Mira's network of helpers had grown larger every day. The colonies are ready to stand together, she said. But we need to move fast. Admiral Rock plans to start the new executions in just 5 days. Jin thought about what his military training had taught him about timing. We need to get more evidence from inside the Empire, he said. Lieutenant Han isn't the only one who wants to stop this. We need to find others who will help us. Lieutenant Han took great risks to help them. She secretly recorded Admiral Rock's meetings with his loyal officers. She copied documents about the torture chambers. Each piece of evidence made more Imperial officers question their orders. One young officer came to Lieutenant Han's quarters late at night. I can't be part of this anymore, he said. I joined the Empire to protect people, not to kill innocent civilians. How can I help stop it? Soon, a small group of Imperial officers was secretly helping them. They provided security codes, patrol schedules, and details about Admiral Rock's plans. Each new piece of information helped Jin plan their response more carefully. But Admiral Rock began to sense the growing doubts among his officers. He called a meeting of all command staff. Anyone who questions our methods is a traitor, he announced. Anyone who shows weakness will be treated like the rebels. Lieutenant Han recorded his speech and sent it to Jin. He's getting desperate, Jin told his team. He knows he's losing control. That makes him more dangerous. But it also means this is our best chance to stop him. Working through the night, they refined their plan. Jin's military experience helped them think of everything. How to protect their helpers in the Empire. How to share the truth without putting more lives at risk. How to make sure justice would be done properly, through law rather than revenge. The Empire's perfect image was cracking. Soon, those cracks would break wide open, showing everyone the truth about what Admiral Rock had done. Time was running out. In his Mars colony office, Jin Kang prepared his team for their most important mission. Like setting up a complex sniper shot, every detail had to be perfect. He had placed trusted people throughout the Imperial systems, each one ready to play their part. Admiral Rock will make his big announcement tomorrow, Lieutenant Han reported through their secure channel. He plans to tell everyone about the new executions. He wants to show the Empire's power is absolute. Jin looked at the digital map showing all their helpers' positions. Some were in Imperial communication centers. Others waited in colony broadcast stations. Many were Imperial officers who could no longer stay silent about the Empire's crimes. Remember your sniper training, Jin said to himself. Check every angle. Plan for every possibility. He had learned in the military that the best operations were the ones where everything looked normal until the very last moment. Tai worked at his computer, preparing to break into the Empire's broadcast system. I've hidden our evidence files in normal data traffic, he said. They look like regular system updates. When we're ready, I can send them everywhere at once. Mira coordinated with their network of helpers. Everyone is in position, she reported. The colonies are ready to record and save everything we broadcast. The Empire won't be able to hide the truth anymore. Jin thought about all the careful preparation that had led to this moment. Like a sniper finding the perfect position, they had slowly moved their pieces into place. The Empire's own overconfidence had made them careless, leaving gaps in their security. "Lieutenant Han, are you ready?" Jin asked through their secure line. "Yes," she answered. "Many officers here will help us now. They've seen too much to stay loyal to Admiral Rock. When he starts his speech, we'll make sure nothing can stop the truth from spreading." They worked through the night, checking every part of their plan. Jin made sure everyone knew exactly what to do. His military experience had taught him that in critical moments, simple, clear instructions were best. "We're not just gathering evidence anymore," he told his team. "We're not just planning. Tomorrow, we show everyone what the Empire really is. But we have to be precise. We have to be perfect. One mistake could cost more innocent lives." Tai prepared their evidence files. Clear images showing the torture chambers, documents proving Admiral Rock had planned the killings in advance, testimony from Imperial officers who had witnessed the crimes. Everything organized so anyone could understand it. In her quarters on the Imperial ship, Lieutenant Han sent her final message of the night. "Admiral Rock suspects something," she wrote. "He's ordered extra security for tomorrow, but he doesn't know how many of his own officers are ready to stand against him." Jin stayed in his office as the Martian night grew dark. Tomorrow would change everything. Like the moment before taking a crucial shot, he felt completely calm. They had planned carefully. They had waited patiently. Now it was time to reveal the truth that would shake the Empire to its core. The day of Admiral Rock's announcement arrived. The Empire had ordered everyone in all colonies to watch their screens. They wanted to show their power. Instead, they were about to see their lies exposed. Jin Kang sat at his command center on Mars, surrounded by screens showing different parts of their operation. His sniper training had taught him that the moments before taking action were the most important. He watched as Admiral Rock stepped onto the grand stage of the Imperial Broadcast Center. "Today, we will show how the Empire deals with those who spread chaos," Admiral Rock began. His voice boomed through speakers across the galaxy. "We have discovered more rebels hiding among." Suddenly, his image flickered. Tez's fingers flew across his keyboard, breaking through the Empire's security just as they had planned. Lieutenant Han and her loyal officers had given them the exact codes they needed. Instead of Admiral Rock's speech, screens everywhere began showing the truth. Clear images of torture chambers, documents with the Admiral's signature ordering the deaths of innocent people, videos of Imperial officers telling how they had been ordered to arrest peaceful protesters. "All channels are open," Tay reported. "Every colony is seeing this. They can't shut it down because we're using their own emergency broadcast system." On the Imperial command ship, Lieutenant Han watched as Admiral Rock's face turned from confidence to fear. He tried to stop the broadcast, but more of his own officers were turning against him. They had seen too much truth to follow his orders anymore. The evidence kept flowing. Jin had organized it carefully, like planning a military operation. First, proof that the executed people were innocent. Then, documents showing how Admiral Rock had planned these killings long before any protests. Finally, testimony from Imperial officers about the real reason for the executions, to scare people into silence. "The colonies are responding," Mira said, watching reports come in from her network. "They're copying everything, saving the evidence. The Empire can't erase this anymore." In the Imperial Broadcast Center, Admiral Rock screamed at his technicians to stop the transmission. But Lieutenant Han had made sure the loyal technicians were away from their posts. The ones who remained simply stood back, watching as years of Imperial lies fell apart. Jin's careful planning had worked perfectly. Like a sniper waiting for exactly the right moment, they had struck when the Empire was most exposed. During their own victory announcement, now everyone could see the truth they had worked so hard to hide. "We have reports from 20 major colonies," Ta said. "Their local security forces are already moving to arrest Imperial officers who followed Admiral Rock's orders. The evidence is too clear to ignore." On his stage, Admiral Rock finally realized what was happening. His perfect plan to control the colonies through fear had been turned against him. The very broadcast meant to show his power had become the tool of his destruction. Jin watched calmly as everything they had planned came together. His military training had taught him that victory often came not from fighting power with power, but from using an enemy's strength against them. The Empire's mighty broadcast system had become the weapon that would bring justice to its victims. After the broadcast revealed the Empire's crimes, Admiral Rock fled to his personal fortress on Europa Colony. He took 50 loyal soldiers with him and threatened to destroy evidence if anyone tried to arrest him. But he didn't realize that Jin Kang had planned for this too. The fortress has 3 levels of security, Lieutenant Han explained through their secure channel. She had helped design the fortress's defenses before she joined the resistance. The outer walls have automatic weapons. The inner doors have genetic locks. The command center has emergency explosives. Jin studied the fortress plans like he would study a sniper mission. His military experience told him that rushing in would cost lives. They needed to be smarter than that. "We don't need to break in," Jin said, pointing to the fortress's power systems. "The Admiral needs electricity to destroy evidence, to run his security, to contact his supporters. What if we took that away?" Ta smiled as he understood the plan. The fortress's backup generators are controlled by Imperial security codes. The same codes Lieutenant Han's friends gave us for the broadcast system. Mira's network had grown even stronger after the broadcast. Colony security forces wanted to help arrest the Admiral, but they needed to do it safely and legally. Jin coordinated with them, sharing his military expertise to plan the operation. "Remember," Jin told the security teams, "we're not here for revenge. We're here for justice. Every step must be legal and clear. We need Admiral Rock to face a proper trial for his crimes." Lieutenant Han sent word that more Imperial officers were turning against the Admiral. They saw the evidence of his crimes and remembered their real duty, to protect people, not to terrorize them. At exactly midnight, their plan began. First, Ta used the security codes to shut down the fortress's main power. The automatic weapons went dark. The genetic locks switched to emergency mode, using simpler codes that Lieutenant Han knew. Admiral Rock's loyal soldiers found themselves in darkness. Many of them had seen the broadcast. Now, sitting in the dark, they thought about what they were really defending. "The outer security teams are surrendering," Mira reported, watching through surveillance systems. "They don't want to fight for him anymore." Jin coordinated with the colony security forces as they moved in. His sniper training had taught him the importance of patience. They didn't rush. They gave each group of soldiers a chance to surrender peacefully. Level by level, the fortress's defenses fell, not through violence, but through the power of truth. The soldiers had seen the evidence. They knew they were defending a man who had ordered the deaths of innocent people. Finally, only the command center remained. Admiral Rock had nowhere else to run, but he still had the explosives, and he was desperate enough to use them. "That's why we have one more surprise," Jin said quietly. He contacted Lieutenant Han, who had one final card to play in their mission for justice. Admiral Rock stood in his command center, surrounded by screens showing his fortress falling to the colony security forces. His hand hovered over the explosion controls. But before he could act, all his screens changed at once. The faces of his own family appeared, his children, his wife, all safe in colony protection. Lieutenant Han had quietly evacuated them before the operation began. She knew that even Admiral Rock wouldn't risk his family's safety. "Your family is safe," Jin's voice came through the speakers. "They'll remain safe, but you need to face justice for what you've done. Not for revenge, but because the law must work the same for everyone." The Admiral's hand fell away from the controls. When security forces entered his command center, they found him sitting quietly, waiting for them. The man who had ordered so many deaths chose, in the end, to surrender peacefully. 1 month later, Jin watched the trial broadcasts from his office on Mars. The evidence they had gathered was clear and complete. Admiral Rock and his closest supporters faced the same justice system they had ignored when killing innocent people. "The colonies are changing," Mira told him, showing reports from her network. "They're building their own justice systems, making sure no one can ever abuse power like this again. Your military planning helped us do more than just catch criminals. It helped us build something better." Lieutenant Han had been promoted to lead a new kind of imperial force, one dedicated to protecting rights instead of taking them away. She worked with colony leaders to create fair laws that would prevent future abuse of power. "The hardest part comes next," Jin said, looking at the Martian sunset through his window. "Making sure justice stays just. Making sure we don't become what we fought against." Ta had started teaching other colonies how to protect their communication systems. "Knowledge is the best defense," he would say. "When people know their rights and can speak freely, no one can trick them into accepting cruelty." The evidence from Admiral Rock's fortress revealed even more about the Empire's crimes. But instead of seeking revenge, the colonies used this information to help heal. They found families that had lost loved ones. They restored rights that had been taken away. They built memorials to remember what happened and prevent it from happening again. Jin thought about everything his military training had taught him. As a sniper, he had learned that the perfect shot required not just skill, but wisdom to know when and how to use that skill. Now he used that same wisdom to help build a better system of justice. "What will you do now?" Mira asked him one evening, as they watched ships arriving from other colonies. Jin smiled. "Keep watching. Keep teaching. There will always be people who try to abuse power, but now we know how to stop them. Not with fear or force, but with truth and law." The sun set on Mars, and Jin knew that somewhere, on every colony, people were sleeping safely tonight. Not because they were afraid, but because they were free. Free to speak, free to question, and free to make sure justice worked for everyone.